let's have a look. We should be live right now, just waiting for OBS to connect. Hey, we are live. And welcome, guys. Thank you for being here. This is an impromptu live stream with Thunderous One Thunderous One. So, thank you for joining me today to discuss Islamic monotheism and your thoughts and impressions.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Lloyd, for inviting me on your show. And yeah, thank you for the opportunity to discuss the material that you've already gone through earlier on this week.
Yeah, no, thank you. So, yeah, I did a 1 hour presentation on this material. It's a preview of what I'm working on for Sunday's broadcast with Thaddeus on Reasoned Answers. So, uh, so the floor is yours. So if you want to, I can go through the slides but give me your impression, what you thought, and we can go through each slide, and then you can tell me what you thought of this. Because I know at one point you wanted to do the same, because apparently you'd had some similar intuitions, but you never got around to researching.
Yeah, I think it was probably about 15 years ago now, when the internet was fresh. Well, maybe not so fresh in 2005, but certainly the research in Islam was gathering a bit of a pace, and more historical material was coming out on the internet, and people were uploading their historical findings, and museums and the education system was slowly uploading their findings, or if you like, their research, their historical information on certain things that was being gleaned by certain, if you like, as they were at the time, websites that were dedicated to against Islam, things like faithfreedom.org, Ali Sina, the Quran.com, the Spirit of Islam. So I
Mm-hmm.
did go into some research many years ago. I procrastinated. I decided not to follow through with it at the time. But there are certain things, obviously, when you're doing research, you remember them. And certainly conversations when you're watching other people's material, certainly when I watched your material, with reference to this subject, it brought many things to my mind as well, but also questions too. I did post one question, if you recall, in the chat that came
Right.
to my mind, but also as well is the what I appreciated with what you did the other day was the amount of information you gleaned from the Bible as well, because it has to be mentioned about you. You mentioned Abraham, his father Terah, Ur, and many other. I won't go to, because it'll probably come out in the chat anyway.
Right.
But I certainly appreciated the links that you drew from the Bible as well, with reference to the moon god. I certainly
Okay.
appreciate that.
Understood. Let me just take a quick break. So, hey everyone, I just want to thank everyone for being here. Yeah, it's been a while since I caught up with Thunderous, and I thought, let's not postpone and delay. Let's at least have a chat. And I do want to bring him back for some other conversations with atheism. This is a subject he's very familiar with, and it will be a fascinating discussion. And I want to say thank you. So, from the top, RJ, thank you for being here. XYZ, always thank you very much for being here to assist. Chloe, good to see you. Always good to see you in the channel. We've got Arnold Nathaniel, Sergeant Grinch. Yeah, I've monetized the channel, and uh, yeah, on that point, I may be applying for a new job soon. So let's see. I may not need to monetize to do the ads. So let's see. Built for Speed, welcome, thank you, and kudos to Thunderous on his own content. Love what I've seen. So there's a comment. There's a compliment to you from RJ Thunderous.
Yeah, I've
Um,
just seen that, and I've just responded. Thank you, RJ.
right. So on this point, guys. So as you know, this material is not final yet. I will work on this further on Sunday. Josie Wales, welcome. Always good to see you. Thank you. So thank you everyone for being here. Um, so previously, I've been doing work on the Jahiliyyah, the condition of ignorance, the time of ignorance, prior to the arrival of Islam. And of course, I believe I have convincingly demonstrated that Islam has definitely a pagan root. Now, certainly, it has adopted certain pseudo biblical practices from Jews and Christians, and it has most certainly adopted Gnostic beliefs. However, it certainly has a pagan root. Muhammad was pagan. He was consecrated to Hubal, which is Baal. He was a worshipper of Manat and Al Uzza with his wife. He had a son called Abd Manaf, who is a god, the star god, the son of the moon and the sun. And of course, he had a son called Abd al Uzza. So clearly, there was a pagan history to Muhammad, which Muslims don't want to reveal. Now, you mentioned something about bringing in the Bible, and I'd like to show people this. Now, none of this material is final. I'll be working on this on Sunday and presenting it Sunday night, so I should have it done by then. But this is the Kaaba, and I'm just going to zoom into this. So what you should see here, guys, is so notice this is the Kaaba, but notice in front of the Kaaba, right, this is called, I think it's called the Hatim. Notice this crescent moon here in front of the Kaaba. Notice this crescent moon right in front of the Kaaba, the cube of the Kaaba. The Muslims actually have this is a vertical shot of the Kaaba itself. So here you've got this crescent, and here you've got this crescent from a top-down view. This is an oblique. And I said that Islam is derived from moon worship. And the crescent moon is one of the gods of Arabia. In fact, it is the god Sin, as I demonstrated from the archaeology and the records. And of course, I did mention in the earlier episodes that Abraham worshipped pillars, and that the Yemenis and the people in Aksum in Ethiopia worshipped pillars, and that according to the Bible, this is pagan idolatry. God hates the worship of the pillar, and he told Abraham to destroy any such worship, right? And look inside the Kaaba, you have pillars. So your thoughts, I'll leave it up to you again, Thunderous.
Yeah, I just thought that the crescents, as you pointed out there, I had actually not noticed that before until you actually brought it out. And to get a topography image, I'd like to know how you got that, because cameras are not allowed above Mecca, are they? So somebody's done a little bit of naughty droning there. But yeah, absolutely. When we're looking at architectural structures within buildings, religious buildings, I'm of the opinion nothing is there accidental. It's all there quite deliberate. So when you're looking at that crescent shape there, that for me adds to the weight of the information that you're providing, that's there quite deliberately. It's whenever you look at anything architectural, as I said, with reference to religion, no piece of stone or piece of wood is there wasted. It's there deliberate. So I thought that was a really good piece of information.
Right. So yeah. So to the audience, what do you guys think of the fact that there is a crescent? Because I spoke of the crescent moon, the moon god Sin, right? And of course he's the crescent moon, and of course the pillars. The fact that you have this inside the Kaaba, you've got pillars like I showed in Aksum in Yemen, and this crescent. This is, I think, a very, very unusual idea. So let me go back to the. So was there any significant that you saw that really jumped out at you from the presentation?
Well, the thing for me, well, all of the presentation that you brought out jumped out to me, but I couldn't help but think at times as well that when you consider Saudi Arabia as it is now, when you Google Mecca and you look at the historical images as you go further back in the past, the more derelict the Kaaba is. Mm-hmm. But now when you look at the image of Mecca, it's just concreted over. Now, what it brought to my mind is, for anybody that recalls this, in 2012, I think it was in Leicester, I don't know what the car park was, but a car park was being dug up, and they found Richard III's body in a car park. Yeah, this is very easily researched. The point I'm trying to make with this is that whenever any locations on Earth is being dug for the first time, particularly when you're laying foundations for buildings, because you have to go deep, you'll find antiquity and archaeologists are there because they want to know what's going to be unearthed. But you don't find this with Islam, and you don't find it with Mecca and Saudi Arabia. They're literally concreting over everywhere. You have to ask certain questions as to why that is, in my opinion, because if they're concreting over it, what are they hiding, if there is indeed anything to hide? Because one has to bear in mind, the Kaaba is supposed to be the oldest building on the planet. Now, traditionally speaking, the Kaaba is related to Adam because it relates to the celestial Kaaba, right? So its very earliest roots should be related to Adam, which in Islamic parlance is, we don't know how long. We know that Adam to Muhammad is 21 generations. We've had that discussion before with 124,000. But at the very minimum, if we go by the biblical chronology, it should be at a minimum of 6,000 years old.
Correct.
So if that's the case, and we know that Abraham had something to do with it, which I think takes it to about 4,000 years old, I stand to be corrected for the occasional
so
wrong.
I can add to that. So narrated Abu Dar, I said, O Allah's Messenger, which mosque was built first? He replied, Al-Masjid ul-Haram. I asked, which was built next? He replied, Al-Masjid al-Aqsa, that's Jerusalem. So first the Kaaba in Mecca, supposedly, and then Jerusalem. I asked, what was the period in between them? He replied, 40 years. And that is in Da'if Bukhari, volume 4, book 55, hadith 636. I can't call it Sahih Bukhari because the moment we show these to Muslims, they claim it's Da'if, brother. So I'm just...
Now, okay, let's go along with that.
Let's look at the timeline here, just briefly. If you can see my screen, you can see the timeline. This is the Christian era here, right? This is when Islam started. Now, this is supposedly, according to... Well, this is when the Temple of Jerusalem was built, right? 957 BC. Now, according to the 7th century Muhammad, who was here, the Kaaba is 40 years older, so that's built in 997 BC. Now, what is interesting is that Abraham's life occurred here in the blue line.
Excellent.
Which is 1800. So obviously dates vary, but the most common date is roughly 1800 BC, and he died in 1625 BC. So 600 plus years prior to the Kaaba being built. So how did he build it?
That was where I was going to go to. But if you wanted to look at the very minimum and just give Islam the benefit of the doubt, given that it said that the Kaaba was built 40 years before Jerusalem, and Jerusalem's temple was built about 1,000 years, I forget the figure exactly, you have a problem with why Islam wants to concrete over everything there. That, for me, is a question that has to be asked. And there are only two possible reasons. There is nothing there, or criminals hide things. It's a bit like Uthman when he burnt the Quran. Only criminals burn evidence.
I agree with you.
And this would fit, if we go by the biblical narrative of who really is in control of the planet. As time is moving forward, people are a lot more, not necessarily sophisticated, but methods of research are a lot more certainly sophisticated than ever been before. And you have a lot more people looking into a lot more subjects now. So as information is being gleaned and garnered, and we're looking at narratives and we're looking at parallels, and one of the best narratives that we can find is the Bible, because the Bible is the only religious text on earth that has secular history that corroborates it. So if you're calibrating time, you have to use the calibration of the Bible, because the Bible is the only text that has secular history mentioned. You find Darius, Cyrus the Great, Nebuchadnezzar, Belshazzar, Nabonidus, all these real people, all these real secular world powers. You can calibrate time with the Bible using that, which is why
it has the archaeology to back it up. And Nabonidus, he was the son-in-law of Nebuchadnezzar, and his son was Belshazzar, who's mentioned in the book of Daniel. So he is clearly a historical figure, and we can date everything accurately.
And we know where the ruins of Babylon are, because they're in southern Iraq, and they're still desolate, like the book of I think it's the book of Isaiah says that they will be desolate, and it will never be rebuilt. And we know three world powers, well, two and Saddam Hussein world powers, have attempted to try and rebuild it, but that prophecy has been proven true. It hasn't been rebuilt. But the point being, another one I wanted to mention was, when you consider Nineveh, the Bible was mocked because no ruins were found of Nineveh, yet Nineveh now has been found, and it is one of the strongest testified to world powers as far as archaeology is concerned, where the antiquities of that world power are actually in the British Museum, and I've had the privilege of seeing them. This is something that the Quran cannot do, and this is one of the problems for the Quran, which your material is bringing out as well.
Excellent, thank you. So RJ says there was a church and wine tubs, think Zamzam, under the Kaaba presumably. Now, I need to look into these references because I have heard that before, but I haven't properly looked into the sources for that. So that's something I need to put on my agenda. I do want to mention though that in Yemen, the Kaaba of Yemen, right? The Kaaba of Yemen. So there were multiple Kaabas, and there certainly was a Kaaba of Yemen to the moon god Sin, right? And this was in Marib, which was the capital at that time, and they didn't just have a little Zamzam well; they had an actual lake, but the lake was breached, and it's mentioned in the Quran. So the story's big. I have more sources. Well, that please drop that in the comments later, RJ. It'll be very interesting for me to look into that as part of the series, as part of the ongoing research into the series. So, so guys, also Built for Speed says the Kaaba was filled with idols, and Muhammad continued using it after removing 359 idols. The Kaaba is still a place of defilement. That's true. Now, I do want to make a note. It has been presented by scholars. So look, there are popular narratives and there are proven narratives. Some narratives are not proven historically. They're just popular historically. They've been asserted by a scholar who has funding, who has support, etc., but they're not necessarily proven. Now, for instance, if you walk down the street, you're somewhere and you walk down the street and you see the Church of the Good Shepherd. Then you see the Church of the Virgin Mary. Then you see the Church of the Risen Redeemer. Then you see the Church of the Holy Spirit. Are you going to assume that these are 3 or 4 different religions? Or are these all the same religion, but someone is just mentioning one different aspect of God's presence that appeals to them, right? They're simply highlighting one of his qualities. So it was not necessarily 360 different gods. It was probably a smaller handful of gods, but they were mentioning different aspects of the same god or gods.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, I, as you just heard in my time, I was just saying excellent, because that's exactly that. Sometimes the gods are intermingled, or they're related. Very much when you look at the pantheon of gods of Hinduism, when you look at, say, the Greek gods and the Roman gods, they're all not individual gods. They're all in some way or another inextricably related to each other.
Right. Right. Oh, by the way, Andrew Martin's here. Thank you for being here. And he's brought up his website, Quran Contradictions, at qurancontradiction.com. No, sorry, qurancontradiction.home.blog. So give his site a visit, qurancontradiction.home.blog. Right, so you mentioned Nineveh. I want to bring up one of these slides that I brought up. So Nineveh is in northern Iraq, close to the border of Syria. If you look here, this is Hatra, located in Nineveh Governorate. And this is Syria, and here's Turkey. So you've got Göbekli Tepe and the dozens of other religious sites here, right? And then Hatra was an ancient city in Upper Mesopotamia, located in present-day eastern Nineveh Governorate in northern Iraq. This was abandoned in the 2nd or 3rd century. It was not found until the 19th century, so until 1700 years later. This was an Arab city, so Arabs this would be from Arabia, had a fortress city, a little city-state, actually all the way in northern Iraq, close to the areas where Abraham lived in Haran. So just to refresh, and then I'll get your thoughts again. So it was a caravan city. It flourished in the 2nd century, destroyed and deserted in the 3rd. So that gels with what you said about the being deserted. Discovered in the 19th century, and it was famed for its fusion of Greek, Mesopotamian, Canaanite, Aramean, and Arabian pantheons. So these are the pantheons of the gods. Hi, Grace. Very welcome. You're welcome, Andrew. Thanks for the support. And then, of course, you've got, it was called Beit Elaha, the house of God. Wouldn't that be one of the names of the Kaaba, Thunderous?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I smile when I read that the first time round when you put it up.
Yeah, and they worshipped, so they had temples to various Babylonian gods, Akkadian gods, Sumerian gods, Canaanite gods. They worshipped Alat, they worshipped Shamash and other Arabian gods amongst all the many, many gods. And also Baal Shaman, who is known in Petra. And of course the Arabians also worshipped the Petran gods. So your thoughts?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the Babylonians, and I think it's something that you touched on several times later on in the presentation, because one has to consider Babylon as not just a strategical location as far as a staging post is concerned, as far as the world power is concerned, as it was at the time, but also it was the world's, if you like, where everything came together. And from Babylon, this is where the main religions that we have today, where their doctrines and their belief systems and their ritualistic patterns and such spread out from there. And as time moves forward, you find that what we're seeing today, say as an example within Islam, you can see is being grafted on from a belief structural system that was in place during the time of Babylon at that particular time. So as time moves forward, the belief or the pattern, let's say the moon god Sin, it's still the moon god, but it goes by a different name because it's been grafted on with a different name, but it's
Right.
still the same thing. And a good book for that. And I will admit, it's a very, very hard book to read. I did not find it easy. In fact, I put it down after a quarter of reading it. It's called The Two Babylons by John Hislop.
Two Babylons.
The Two
Okay.
Babylons by John Hislop.
So Skull Super just said something really interesting and very valuable. Skull Super says, Surah 38:5, which is on the screen now. We have made all the gods into one. This explains all the idols. So this is, I'm reading here, Pickthall. Maketh he the gods one Allah? Lo, that is an astounding thing. In Sahih International, has he made the gods only one God? Indeed, this is a curious thing. That is brilliant because this was going to be part of what I was going to be discussing on Sunday. So thank you for bringing that up. I was not aware of this verse, oddly enough. Andrew Martin says, we can see a current of syncretization there, joining various pagan religions together as empires expand. So he continues this tradition of fusing gods and religions together, and this is true. This is actually true. Hold on, let me go find the reference because this was noted already back in the early 20th century. So as you guys know, this is still a work in progress, but guys, I want to bring this up. So this is from one of the famous archaeologists of the day, right? So I'm just going to bring this up here. Needless to say, this multiplication of god names does not imply an extensive polytheism. All of the names of all the gods have been reduced to three: the sun, the moon, and the Venus star. These are respectively represented in sculpture as a disc, a crescent, and a star. They say 8-pointed, that was typical. You also got 7, and of course we know it was reduced to 5. Each of these three had many functions and attributes, each with a name, and the reduction of these to 3 is only exceeded by the Islamic heaping of all attribute names onto a single divinity. So they reduced all of the attributes of all the gods onto a single divinity. Although there were but the 3 gods, each might be worshipped separately and under different names. So let me just clean this up here. So each might be worshipped separately in different aspects and under different names. So that is very interesting. This matches exactly what this verse in the Quran says. So scholars have noticed this. Your thoughts on that, Thunderous?
Yeah, when you presented that, I thought to myself that when people consider that Allah has 99 names, those were the names of the previous gods, but they were then amalgamated into Allah, the one God, and thus became attributes rather than names. Though they claim that they are names, which I never seem to understood why you can say benevolent and merciful is a name, but they're attributes. But if you're reducing them down to other gods, and there were 359 at the time, well, 360 minus 1, 359. That would make more sense there, if that makes any sense.
No, I agree. So we know that, for instance, he took Ar-Rahman, which happened to be the name of the god of the Christians and the Jews, as well as one of his competitor fake prophets, and he incorporated that as one of the attributes and names of Allah. So Andrew Martin says this unification, the Ahad, would be very important for one empire. That is true. So welcome, Satlafini Report. Welcome. So the 99 names are an amalgamation of the hundreds of gods in the Kaaba. That is true. I did say earlier, there wasn't necessarily hundreds of gods. Now, okay, so let's two things. One about the pantheons. So if you look at the Roman, the Greek pantheons and others, right, the pantheons of gods, you would have the main god, El, right, who also goes under various names. Then you had El's consort, his companion, right? So you'd have the moon and the sun as the companion, all swapped around. Right? Then you'd have their son, which would be the star, right? The child of the gods. Then you might have many stars, gods, who are the sons of. Then below that you'd have the minor gods that serve these gods. So you'd have craft gods, gods that make things. But also you'd have gods of the water, like gods of the ocean. You'd have gods of the land, gods of the mountains. And then you'd have also these craft gods who create weapons for the gods, who make chariots, who make things, who introduce tools. And then you'd have minor pantheons. So that's one thing to bear in mind. So there definitely were the idea of multiple gods, right? Minor gods, minor deities. This has been common. And two, like I said, it wasn't necessarily that when you walk down the street and you see Church of the Good Shepherd, Church of the Lamb, Church of the Redeemer, Church of the Risen Christ, those are not four separate religions. Those are simply denominations within one religion. They're just emphasizing one aspect. So the 360 idols of the Kaaba were not necessarily 360 religions or 360 different gods. There could have been 5 different gods or 2 different gods or 20. But bear that point in mind. Also, by the way, when the Muslims say that Allah has 99 names, right? That is a list made by a particular group. Those are 99 aspects. Allah has hundreds of names. He's got at least 500 names. When you look through any list of the 99 names, these are 99 attributes, you will find dozens of these lists, and they will all differ, right? They will all differ, and so thus Allah has hundreds of names. Just one list of 99 names just happens to be that person's personal list of favorite names. Your thoughts, Thunderous?
Yeah, there's a standardization sometimes because they can't find a consistent pattern. It's very much when you look at the genealogy of Adam to Muhammad, they have to, wherever you go is determined by the names that are in that genealogy, but the average is about 21. It's the same thing with these attributes that you've mentioned in there. The 99, or there could be more, they tend to differ amongst themselves depending geographically where you're located. And I even personally think that's down to the influence of the 99 names or the other names that were there at that one geographical location. So the influence of those names is more culturally related as opposed to religiously related.
Okay, yeah, no, I think that would make a point. So Andrew Martin says the gods of the sky, earth, and the mountains are in the Quran. They're male. They escape Muhammad's pruning of female deities. That is interesting. And also, as I said, within Arabia, they swapped the genders of some of the gods around, right? I can show you here. We'll discuss one of the gender fluid gods. I will bring this up. As you can see, I'm still working on this. This is still being... so let me just look up... here we go. The gender fluid god Alat. So let me show this, guys. So you had Attar. Known as Attar, he goes under many, many names. Also known as Ishtar and others, I've shown him before, right? So in Western culture, or in the typical understanding of this god, she presents as female. But in Arabia, it tends to be male, okay? There's a gender swap. So Semitic deity whose role, name, and gender varied by culture, either male or female, always identified with the planet Venus. In pre-Islamic South Arabia was worshipped as a god of war, and the moon gods are gods of war. Now, Alat, according to a recent study, is believed to have been introduced into Arabia from Syria and was the moon goddess of northern Arabia. Remember, I also showed that it's within the Sirah, it's within the narrations and the traditions of Muhammad, that Hubal was brought from northern Syria, and they named the guy who brought Hubal, right? So therefore, there's the possibility that Hubal is Alat. So if correct, she corresponds to the moon deity of South Arabia, Al-Makkah. Al-Makkah is El-Makkah. Now what's interesting is you've got El, the main god, that was replaced by Yahweh, right? El is the main god of Mesopotamia, the main god of the Canaanite religions, of the Babylonian religions. So El and Makkah could possibly means the servant of El, the follower of El, the slave of El, the possession of El. Right? I think that it may well mean that. So this actually means someone who follows El. So, and then of course he was also known as Sin, the difference being the gender. That's in the Archaeology of World Religions by Jack Finnegan. Muslims will say that Al-Makkah was not a moon god. They will claim that he was Dionysian in character. They will mention the name of a particular scholar. That scholar says may have been or could have been this or that. There is no confirmation there, understand? And it's disproven by the archaeology and by the inscriptions, because within the Yemeni excavations, Al-Makkah is Sin, the moon god, and the moon god is also a war god. Your thoughts, Thaddeus? Thunderous. I keep calling you Thaddeus. I have no idea why. Sorry about that. Yeah.
No, There's nothing I can add to that, because that material you just brought up there, I'd heard for the first time when you read it out the first time round. So I haven't given him, I've not done any research, and it certainly didn't bring anything to my mind, but it's just new information for me now, so I appreciate that.
Okay. Now, also in the Quran, we've got multiple verses, multiple surahs that are named after actual gods of Arabia, like Shamash is the god of the sun, right? The sun goddess. So the sun god Shamash becomes the sun goddess Shams. So you have, this is the name of one of the chapters of the Quran. You've got numerous chapters of the Quran named after gods. Have you got any thoughts about that?
Well, I've always found the names of the titles of the chapters in the Quran quite bizarre. Anyway, you've got Miriam, you've got the cow, you've got the ant.
True.
All of them I found quite curious, because you see, yet again, this is following on allegedly from Islamic parlance, the same God as the God of the Jews and the God of the Christians. Yet we find the titles of the Quran and their chapters don't relate to anything that has been found before. And just on a side note, what sometimes Muslims would turn around and say that there's a whole chapter devoted to the name of Miriam, so this proves that Muhammad and Allah love women. But the thing is, it's one of the shorter chapters in the Quran, and Al-Baqarah, the cow, is longer. So I guess Allah loves cows more than women then.
I have to agree with you that logic holds true. Yes. Yeah, I mean, you've got Al-Qamar, the moon, which is the name of one of the moon gods of Arabia. You've got Al-Buruj, the stars, which is the offspring. Reason Dance is in the chat. Welcome. Thank you for visiting. Now, this is also interesting. Al-Malik, the king. I do want to mention, as I said, this is still raw. I need to finish this for Sunday for Thaddeus. But I want you to look at this triliteral root. MLK. MLK. Malik. Abd al-Malik is not a name, it's a title. It means the slave of the king, right? The follower of the king. Now, we've shown that it's derived from Muqarrib, right? It comes from the Yemeni term Muqarrib, and it replaced it eventually. And this is someone who was the servant of the god. And Mu means someone who does what is in the next word. So Muqarrib, okay? Qarib means servant of Baal, okay? So Karabal and so on. I covered that in the previous episode. But notice MLK, okay, for Malik, right? Al-Muluk. It goes under many names, Muluk, Malik, and so on. It means the king. But there is discussion among scholars that the king might not refer necessarily to a human king, or it did afterwards refer to people. But when they say the king, they could be referring to the king of the gods, the supreme deity, Malik. Now, I want to mention this, and this I'm still putting this together, I'm still thinking about this, but we have other gods. MLK also is the root of the name Moloch. Any thoughts on that? Any thoughts from you on that, Thunderous?
No, well, Molech, I think, was it Molech that, which one of the kings was it? Sacrificed his children to that god Molech. I'm trying to think of what the king's name is, and he softened the face of God, because when he was brought forward, I remember he repented, and his repentance was taken seriously, and he was let free to go back to be king again. I forgot what the bloody king's name is. But yeah, Molech is an old god that goes back to just after King David's time in Scripture, that I can recall, but it might have been mentioned earlier in Scripture, but I don't recall. But I know one of the kings of the Bible sacrifices children.
Interesting. So this is Molech here, right? So I'll just bring up his image. So this is Molech. These are some of the many images of Molech. But MLK from Malik, right? From the Muqarribs, the Muqarribal, that was one of the terms, the Karabal. Karabal, the servant of, the slave of the god Baal, and the Mu is one who serves Baal, right? And MLK, the same root is for Molech, the same root for king, which could refer to a god. And so you've got Malik, Molech, the king. I serve the king. Abd al-Malik, the slave of the king. So now you've got the slave of Molech. So understand, so Molech might be this god Sin as well. There's the possibility.
Was it made out of bronze?
Yes, because they would sacrifice children on his lap. They would sacrifice children on his lap here. So they would burn, yeah. This is one of the abominations mentioned in Deuteronomy.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Will you be mentioning, because you mentioned earlier on in your previous, when you brought this out on Sunday, about the kissing of the hand. Is that something you'll be
oh
bringing out
yes,
again?
so let me talk about that. Yeah, so the kissing of the hand, kiss. Actually, that's a fair point. So I need to mention. Okay, so a common act of moon worship, right? A common act of moon worship among the Semites was to kiss the hand upon seeing it, right? It was so. Remember, I said here a common act. I mentioned this with Thaddeus. So when these Arab pagans would see the moon, they would kiss the hand upon seeing it. Now let's have a look here. This, and thank you to one of my subscribers who mentioned this in the comments.
Excellent.
Job 31:26 to 27. If I have regarded the sun in its radiance, or the moon moving in splendor, so that my heart was secretly enticed, and my hand offered them a kiss of homage. This is stolen from the Bible. It's in I. So yeah, your thoughts on that?
No, that was one of the things I appreciated you bringing out because when I did the research many years ago, it's interesting how many times the pagan gods, particularly the moon god, and this is goes back to what I was trying to say earlier on about the Babylon Empire as it was, where Satan and the demons have managed to continue certain pagan demonic practices. They've revised the name, they've revised the image, but still the process is still there. So these traditions that we're looking at now are thousands of years old, not hundreds, but thousands of years old, that have their times even way back when Job was alive, to the
Right.
point that Job mentions it. But also, I don't know if you mentioned this, but also that in the book of Judges, there's references there as well. Did you? I don't know if you brought
I
that one
may
up.
have, but
Judges.
I'm not sure if I have the same. But let me. So something from Andrew Martin. Notice the cattle head of Moloch. Moloch, Molech.
Mm.
Remember, it's still the same triliteral root. MLK, Malik, right? So notice the cattle head, and this is important because the symbol of the moon god was the cow, the bull's head, right? The horns, specifically the horns, just like the crescent moon, right? This was the symbol of the moon god. So now you've got this very same symbol right here. And this was a common symbol of the Babylonian era, was a common symbol within Arabia as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And you'll notice that it's at the horizontal, not the vertical, but placed horizontally, and you see
Yep.
that image on so many stone carvings that it's too much for it to be a coincidence.
Yeah. No, there definitely was. And if you look at the so when we look at the flags, so let me just minimize this. So when we go to the flags, I need to find um, yeah, I can't chat to. Okay, so I want to bring this up. So let me go here. So this is called the Hilal. However, this is called the Hilal, the crescent. Hilal is also the name of one of the ancient moon gods of Arabia. It's also the name. So the god has multiple aspects. The crescent, right? The moon, which is called Badr, and then of course it's got the full moon. And remember, do remember that the Quran speaks of the Nur, the light of Allah, the Nur Allah, the Nur Muhammadi, the light of Muhammad. And understand Nur means moonlight. There's a different word for sunlight. So all the references in the Quran and in the Islamic literature to the light of Allah is to the moonlight. Allah emits moonlight. Muhammad emits moonlight. Why the moon? Right? And have a look here. Crescent and star. Crescent. Here, this vertically oriented crescent and star. All of these symbols, here the vertical crescent again, right? The horizontal. It's all the same though. All of
Mm.
these flags derive from the original pagan practice of the moon. Hilal, exactly. Hilal ben, yeah, exactly. Lucifer, the falling star, exactly. Hilal refers back to the Bible. So yes, there's clearly some sort of plagiarism from the Bible, some connection there.
Yeah, can I bring out scripture in the
Sure,
book of Judges?
sure, sure.
Judges chapter 8 verse 21 reads, then Zeba and
Oh yes,
Zalmunna.
I do have that. Yes, yeah. Zeben Zalmuna. Yes, yes. Go on.
Okay, so it says,
Yes, yep.
arise thou and fall upon us, for as the man is, so is his strength. And Gideon arose and slew Zebah and Zalmunna and took away the ornaments that were on their camels' necks. And
Yes.
those ornaments are said to be crescent ornaments. Depending on the translation that you read of the Bible, some will just say ornaments on the necks, some will actually render it crescent-shaped
Which
ornaments.
Judges was that, please? Judges? Which one?
Judges 8:21.
Yes, because I have a page dedicated to that. I was going to cover that for Sunday. So yes, let's just I'll grab the first one I find.
And then there's also verse 26 as well.
And
So
it's also in
Judges.
Psalms. There's another reference in Psalms. There's three references to this. Then Zebah and Zalmunna said, Rise thou and fall upon us. For as the man is, and Gideon rose and slew Zebah and Zalmunna and took away the ornaments. And in fact, in different translations, it talks of the crescent
Yes, yeah,
ornaments.
different translations have
Different
the word.
translations speak of the crescents that were on their necks. And it's mentioned in Psalms as well that these were enemies of God. These were enemies. It's mentioned in the Psalms as well. I have that. I still need to add that in. But yes, it is there. And it took the ornaments. It says it took the royal ornaments. It took the crescent. There we go. It took the crescent ornaments that were on the necks. I don't know why this translation removed it, but the crescents are there. And it's in Psalms as well. I will cover that in the next show.
I think the fact that they took them from camels as well is kind of
Very
like
good
points
point.
into a certain direction.
Camels. You're right. You're right. That is very good. Yes, it's mentioned because it is mentioned in Psalms that they want to specifically squash worship to Yahweh.
Can I
Yeah.
just while it's on my mind as well, if you look, and I can get you the scriptural references from research I did previous, but the Arabians, because I did this research predicated
Mm-hmm.
on when Muslims bring out Deuteronomy 18:18, that they say that the Muslims or the Arabs at the time were seen as brothers of the Jews. When you look at the Hebrew scriptures and you look at the word Arabian, you will find that they aligned themselves with Midianites and Canaanites against the nation of Israel. In fact,
Yes.
when Nehemiah wanted to rebuild the walls of Jerusalem, it was the Arabians, along with the with other people, that are actually proven to be God's enemies. So every
Yeah.
time you look at Scripture, they are not brothers; they're always seen as
Enemies.
enemies.
Yes. This is mentioned in Psalms, and then of course in the book of Job, you
Yeah,
get these Sabians or Sabaeans that killed Job's family, Lot's family. Sorry, no, Job's family.
Judge. Yeah.
Job's family. So yeah, in fact, so they were the servants of Satan who attacked Job's family and pressured Job into.
And if these scriptures are written during a particular period of time or covering a historical period of time, the fact that the Arabs, camels, crescent-shaped ornaments, I mean, it's not a pattern emerging yet. Can we see?
Yes.
Also, has anybody ever looked at the etymology of the word lunatic? Have you ever done that?
Yes, I have. Yes, I actually have notes on that. I need to add that in. So look, Judges 8:21, Judges 8:26, and Psalm 83:4 and 83:11 to 12. Let me just go there to Psalms quickly. Let's go have a look at what Psalms says. Okay, let's go to Bible Gateway, Psalm 83:4. Come, they say, let us destroy them as a nation, so that Israel's name is remembered no more. So the very same people are an enemy of Israel because they worship the one God, Yahweh. Um, and Psalm 83:11 to 12. So let me get Psalm 83, the full chapter. So let's just go to Psalm 83:11 to 12. And make their nobles like Oreb and Zeb, and their princes like Zebah and Zalmunna, who said, Let us take possession of the pasture lands of God. So these are the enemies of God. These are not.
Mm.
So yes, you're right. These are the enemies of God.
So when you draw the pattern all together, the Bible doesn't explicitly say it, but there's all the information is there for you to get the clues
Yeah.
together and come to see what the image is.
Yeah, and then someone says, so Hillel ben Shahar, Manny actually, thank you very, very much. I appreciate that. So let me actually have a look here. Shahar, I have it in the notes. I said I've got to finish this in time. Notice that Elam, so from Terah, Terah is the father of Abraham. Elam
Hmm.
is the name given to the moon by the southern Hebrews, and variants of Elam were Era, Etera, Ilmakkah, the god of Yemen, the moon god of Yemen, who was Sin, Jera, okay, Shahar, and Terah. So here you've got, and then of course you have Shahar, right, as well, which is one of the. So notice Isaiah 14:12 in Hebrew. Hilal bin Shahad, the fallen angel, Satan's symbol and the symbol of the religion of peace. So Hilal bin Shahad means crescent moon and morning star. I need to confirm this, but your thoughts?
I have a slightly different opinion on that scripture
Yeah,
there.
no, this is someone
Who
else.
it's
Someone
referring
else sent this to me, so I haven't confirmed this. I cannot endorse this as yet, but I need to check it. But this is just what was
to.
sent to me. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not one that I've looked at in this context.
So I just need to. I'm running late. We started late, guys, and I need to get on another call. But yeah, any thoughts? Any further thoughts? Because I do need to make another call. Unfortunately, I was at work late, and then your thoughts on things like. Oh, by the way, I've updated this slide. Maybe we can get so in other cultures, the moon was female, the sun was male, but the genders are reversed in Arabia. The moon is masculine. The star is the offspring of the moon and the sun, and Muslims fast from the crescent moon to the crescent moon. Islam has a lunar calendar. And then you mentioned lunatic. Exactly, lunatic as well. That's Islam's mosque, all have pagan crescent. Look at this massive. These are people here. Okay, so these are people standing here on this little crescent moon in Arabia. This is the one on top of the clock tower in Mecca. I mean, that is enormous. This thing is enormous. And of course, there's lots of symbolism like this. So your thoughts on this?
I think, to be honest with you, when you look at it at this kind of depth, and you look at, say, the symbols in the Bible, there are no symbols. Isaiah makes it clear that, not to do anything like that. And yet you can see just through this alone the steeply rich history of paganism and Islam, and how it's interlinked, and one
Right.
enforces the other.
Right. And also, I want to note that, so also note that if you read through the news reports, there's a lot of talk. They always go on in the Arabian newspapers about the moon will be directly over the Kaaba tonight. The moon will be directly over the Kaaba tonight. The sun will be setting directly over the Kaaba tonight. The moon will rise directly over the Kaaba. Why would they make a big deal out of this?
Yeah, but the thing is, geographically, where you're standing, the moon could be setting in the chimney across the road from me, depending where on the road I'm standing. I can make the moon land or rise, or the sun set or sunrise, wherever I want it to. All I've got to do is stand in the right location for
Yeah.
it to take place. So that's
Yeah,
a
and it
silly
says here
thing.
in the news you'll find plenty of articles. Moon aligns directly above the Kaaba in Makkah's Grand Mosque. I need to fix this, but as I said, this is I'm still working on this. So guys, I have to go. Unfortunately, we did start a bit late. We had technical problems with Thunderous this time. Uh, guys, yeah, I had to reinstall a bunch of software and drivers and OBS to fix. I had to reinstall OBS and set it up from scratch to make it work. And I tested it and tested it, and I'm working again. But this time Thunderous had problems. We started late.
All right.
So
And
your final thoughts, Thunderous, and
my,
thank you
my,
guys for
my
being here.
My final thoughts are lunatic, taken from the Latin word lunar. The late Latin is lunaticus, Old French lunatique, Middle English from French lunatic, from Latin lunaticus, from a belief that changes of the moon cause intermittent insanity. Now, if there was one religion that involves the moon that causes intermittent insanity, hence the word lunatic, why, join the dots, does it not fit Islam?
Well, actually,
Lunatic.
if you look further into the history of the term lunatic, it's mentioned twice in the Bible. Once in connection with possession by the moon, where Jesus frees a boy from possession, and he says the boy is lunatic, so the boy has been possessed by the moon.
No, I've not. That's a new one for me. I'm gonna have a look
Yeah.
at that tonight.
Yeah, so there's reference to that. So it appears twice within the Bible, and so that's something I'm working on as well. Hopefully, I'll have time on Sunday to dig further into that. But guys, if any of you want to dig further into that, drop it in the comments. Look, there's lots of room. Welcome, Ben Yosef. So guys, villains, too bad you missed it. Hopefully next time Sunday, guys. So look, there's plenty of room for research here. There's so many paths to run down. So Sunday, yes, Thaddeus, yeah, we're good for 8 p.m. Sunday, definitely. Yeah, I'll be away this weekend, so I'm gonna have to really rush when I get back and make sure I get the last slides done. But yes, I'll be on the channel on Sunday. So guys, there's plenty of room for research. There's lots of stuff to read. Anyway, so sorry, Thunderous, I've got to call it. So your thoughts before I run.
No, just thank you for the show. It's been, I thought it was excellent material as per usual. A great deal of variety that you provide as well. It's a real pleasure to listen to your hard research and all this. Thank you.
Yeah, so guys, here you've got the Kaaba with its little crescent moon right in front of the Kaaba and the pillars that are detested by God that Abraham was forbidden to worship. So yeah, guys, hopefully this is interesting. Please, there's lots of room to look into this, to research further, and there's more to discover. So thanks, guys. Thanks for being here tonight. Appreciate your time, and please, any comments? Oh, don't forget, like, Sharia, and subscribe. Actually, Jihad, the like button, Sharia, and subscribe. Let your friends know. Thanks all. God bless. And yeah, we shall see you guys soon. And thank you, Thunderous, for joining us. So guys, please have a look at Thunderous's channel. I need to drop it in the description. But Thunderous, drop your channel in the comments and I'll pin it. All right. So thanks, guys. Take care.
Bye bye.
Good night. God bless.